you, Eric. All right, Vanakkam, Namaskar and good evening, everybody. Very warm welcome to everyone who is here from Thunai to this interactive talk via video conferencing by Dr. Eric Miller. I am Smita, one of the co-founders of Thunai, a mental health practitioner and a DMT practitioner. So a little bit about Thunai is that it is a non-profit and we are basically working on three varied but deeply connected areas of mental resilience skills, trauma recovery, and maternal mental health. It is Thunai's idea to make resources for mental health awareness approachable and simple, which is why we have previously also been doing webinars on relevant topics through 2021, 2022. You can visit our website, www.thunai.org, or send us an email at connect@thunai.org to receive our newsletters and the recordings of the session that you are presently attending as well. Before we begin, a few things. I have said this before, so this might be a little repetitive for people who joined on time, but please bear with me. One is that this is a safe and inclusive space. You are free to share your reflections and also ask your questions. However, we request you to put your questions on the chat box, type it out. But if you really have to ask it vocally, wait till the end of the session when the facilitator, Dr. Eric Miller, gives the chance for questions to be asked. Of course, this is a space to share, but we really appreciate the mics to be muted because it makes it easy for us to hear each other. But if you wish to participate, make a point. I think Dr. Eric will address it better, but you can use the raise your hand option as well. As it was mentioned earlier, this is an interactive talk. So the facilitator has requested that the camera must be in the on mode, the video. This is a non-judgmental space, everyone. So we really encourage this for all the participants because you really, if you want to reap the benefits of an interactive talk such as this, the best way to do it is with camera on. However, if you wish otherwise, I very kindly request you to exit and choose to wait for the recording, which will be published on the website after a few days, right? Okay, now we have Dr. Eric Miller here. So 34 years ago, and I've heard this story from him, 34 years ago, Eric came to India to study the Tamil epic Silapadigaram, which is the epic of the anklet. And he literally walked the path taken by Kannagi from Pumbuhar to Madurai. So when I heard this story for the first time, it just blew my mind to see somebody have the grit and determination to be a part of the story. And I have known Eric for quite a while. And at first, it was my curiosity which was just to know what he does, what is storytelling work in India. But today, I share my admiration, I'm sure, with many, many people who appreciate for his pioneering efforts in storytelling in India. I have been fortunate to be his student at one point, and I do look up to him as a mentor. Time and again, we do share some space together. He is so Eric has a PhD in folklore from the University of Pennsylvania and a master's degree in psychology from University of Madras. Dr. Eric has taught in 3 colleges in New York and 3 colleges in Chennai. Presently, he directs the World Storytelling Institute and the annual Chennai Storytelling Festival, by the way, which is a fabulous event and it's due in 2023, February. He is also the Assistant Director of the East-West Center for Counseling and Training and the Indian Institute of Psychodrama. So this is all about the introduction, but apart from here, over to Eric. He is on Spotlight for everybody. Anybody who is not able to see him on Spotlight, send me a direct message on chat and I can help you. All right. But right now, for all of us, can you all give me a thumbs up if you can see Eric on the front? Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you all. Over to Eric. Session is yours.
Thank you very much. And I think you are all seeing me, but I am seeing all of you who have your cameras on, and I want to thank you very much. because I really like to see who I'm talking with. As you'll see, I lead a session in a conversational way. After I talk for a couple of minutes, I'll ask for some sort of feedback. So, so thank you for those of you who have your cameras on. Okay, so the topic of the day is storytelling therapy. And how is my voice? Is my voice coming okay?
All good, Eric.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Yes, so storytelling therapy is one of the creative art therapies, like dance therapy and music therapy, visual art therapy. But it also provides a service to the other art therapies, because just like story is used in all of the arts, or can be used in all of the arts, storytelling therapy can be used in all of the other creative art therapies. And also storytelling therapy can be considered a part of expressive arts therapy. Are people familiar with this term, expressive arts therapy? Raise your hand if you're familiar with the term, expressive arts therapy. Yes, thank you. That is the combination of the arts, which are used ideally seamlessly, going from movement to sound to painting to writing. Some of the activities are more movement oriented and sound oriented. Some are quiet and individual, internal oriented. And part of the craft of leading an expressive arts therapy session is deciding when to invite the group to do group things, when to do individual things. So storytelling therapy is part of that. And actually, my wife, who is Magdalene J. Ratnam, an Indian person, she and I, she's the director and I'm the assistant director of the East-West Center for Counseling and Training, which is now coming up on its 12th year of offering a one-year diploma course in expressive arts therapy. And storytelling therapy is one component of that. And psychodrama is another component. Magdalene specializes in psychodrama. So that training goes for 1 year in person in Chennai. And the next batch will begin in December. If you might possibly be interested, let me know. People have to come to Chennai for, I think, five modules over the year. And then we now have an option where people can continue for a second year with a university to earn a master's degree. So if you might like to earn a master's degree in psychological counseling with a specialization in expressive arts therapy or psychodrama, please let me know. A wonderful thing about this degree is that one can enter it with any UG degree. One does not have to have a UG degree in psychology. All right, so that's all the beginning of it. So story, of course, is about identity. You know, when we talk about the story of my life, the story of your life, what's your story? It's about identity. Who are you? Who am I? And we often conceive of who we are and express who we are in terms of stories. The story of our group, of our family, of our caste, if you're in a caste, a religion, if you're in a religion, on various levels. The story of your language group, the story of your nation, your individual story of how you grew up. These different stories combine all the different layers to supply our identity. So part of wellness is to have a clear sense of who one is, where one is coming from, where one is going to, where one hopes to be going to, and to be at peace with the development of one's identity. Any comments, questions, or, I mentioned before, well, I guess before the recording began, when a speaker stops and says, do you have any doubts? I think that's terrible, because doubt is like, it's a word that to me has to do with humiliation. If you have doubts, that means maybe I didn't explain it clearly or completely, or maybe you didn't understand it. It's all a negative. So I never ask for people's doubts. And then some speakers will ask, do you have any questions? That's okay, but it doesn't give full freedom to the listeners, because you can only follow up exactly on the agenda that I presented. So I feel it's even better to say, do you have any questions or comments? And best of all is, would you share with me and with the group anything that's come up in your mind as you've been listening for the last few minutes? So I'm asking all that now. Anybody want to say anything?
Hi,
Ask
I'm
me.
Rajati.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would like to know the location of this training center and what is the target the topic actually does. Basically, age group or say psychodrama, I understand. Other kind of psychology which is equal to UG. So what way it covers the program based on practical application, because UG is a 3-year program. Here you're talking about a 1-year program. I'm not from a psychology background, but I listen to a lot of psychology topics. I'm a postgraduate in commerce. So this is little impressive because, instead of going through 3 years or 2 years to become a degree holder in psychology, there is any other, direct program with, if I can be associated with much experienced people, it would have a value addition. So knowledge transfer would be much better and effective. So this
Yes,
is my
well,
agenda.
Yes, well, as mentioned, and I'll as soon as I have a break, I'll put the website addresses of our organizations in the chat section. The first year is a diploma course in expressive arts therapy, and that is done by the Center for Counseling in partnership with Women's Christian College in Chennai. So people, the students have to come to Chennai 5 times a year for, I think, 2 weeks each time, 10 days each time. And then they work on a project where they apply what they've learned by working with a group back in their home area, if they're not from Chennai. And so that is a 1-year diploma program. But now there's the option of continuing for a second year, or I think it's more like a year and a half, to continue to earn a master's degree. And to earn that master's degree, we are partnering with another a university in Shillong, way up north. So in the second year, one would have to come to Shillong for, I think, 5 modules. It's the Martin Luther Christian University in Shillong. And where myself and my wife, we're not, this is not a Christian training, but it just happens that we're working with universities that have the word Christian in the name. But a fascinating thing about the university in Shillong is that in Meghalaya, it's mostly tribal people. And so many of the professors and administrators, as well as the students, are tribal people. So it's really a tribal people run university, which is a rare thing. And they're doing a really beautiful job. It's a relatively new university. But that's I think that's the answer to what you were asking. Expressive arts therapy, the combination and the different creative arts therapies can be used one-on-one with people and in groups, and it can be used with people of all ages. Myself, I like to work with adults one-on-one. And what I'll be presenting today is geared towards one-on-one. Carl Jung, who is really the founder of this whole field of using symbols in psychoanalysis and the collective unconscious, he said that therapy really is for people in the second half of life, where you're kind of getting things in order in preparation for your exit. That's you know, Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud are known as the two of the founders of psychoanalysis. So that was Carl Jung's perspective, and I work with at least people over 21. But of course, many people who study with us are working with children or with groups. Okay, does that answer some of that question?
Yeah.
Yeah, with children, many times the expressive arts. See, the term expressive arts means that the client is doing something, is moving, is singing, is painting actively, not just appreciating somebody else's music or dance. So the very act of creating is therapeutic, and sometimes with children that's as far as it goes. But with adults, of course, there's a lot of discussion afterwards to help the client integrate what came up with their conscious mind. The whole idea of the creative art therapies is that through artistic experimentation, play, just doodling, through the artistic play, things may come up from the unconscious that we were not previously aware of. So wellness then involves a partnership between your conscious mind and your unconscious. Sometimes we'll want to have a dream. You know, if we're thinking on something, we'll say, I need to sleep on it. And we'll want to have a dream. And if a dream comes, a dream can be seen as a story that the unconscious tells to our consciousness. And often when you know, someone tells a story to someone, there's a point or a number of points. So sometimes our unconscious wants to give a message, a point to our consciousness. So all of this work with the creative art therapies is about opening the door, to use a metaphor, opening the window, to allow more and more back and forth communication between the conscious mind and the unconscious. Okay, I'm about to put up on the screen the 8 steps of the storytelling therapy method that I work with, and then we'll go through the steps, and I'll invite you to experience some of the steps in a very introductory way. But before I do that, anyone want to share what has come up on your mind in the last few minutes? Please, you're invited. No? No need. Okay.
Actually, Eric, I have something to share.
Go ahead.
So when I started off, this is about 10 years back, I can resonate with what you said about dreams being a way of stories coming up to you. And it has actually happened with me, wherein the players in my dreams used to be people who are completely unknown to me. And I used to often wonder, am I supposed to be a director? Am I in the wrong profession? So, but that's how it started. And the thirst to get to know my story, I think, begins from when your mind is opening up to various kinds of intertwining things, I think. That's my reflection. That's my 2 pence on what you just.
The goal of this work in Jungian terms, the term that we have from him is individuation. Now, he was writing in Swiss or German, so I'm not sure about the translation, but that's the term that we have in English, individuation, which means becoming a mature individual. Mature means integration on 2 levels, that we learn about the different parts of ourselves. We bring different parts of ourselves up to our awareness, even some parts of ourselves that we might consider negative. Jung called those parts the shadow parts of ourselves. But it's a process of increasing awareness of the different inclinations, the different voices within us. Bringing all that up and introducing all the parts to each other, and achieving a kind of a integration between those different parts. And then the other integration involved is really getting clear where one stands in relation to society and history and culture. What ideologies do you follow? What social movements do you follow? What sense of divinity, if at all, do you follow? A way to refer to the whole picture, WHOL, is to talk about the cosmos. That leaves it open whether or not there is a divine divinity or not. But part of wellness is just knowing who one is and being comfortable with one's position in the cosmos, in society, knowing who you're allied with and who you're in opposition to, if anybody, but really knowing who you are, where you stand. That is part of wellness, as well as the internal integration. So that's one way to formulate the goal of therapy, or of personality development, or life coaching. I tell people who do not have a master's degree in psychology, you can do the storytelling therapy. You can use most of the storytelling therapy method even without a master's degree. You just call what you're doing life coaching. There's not much regulation about who can be a life coach and not. You can call it life coaching. Okay, now I'm going to bring up the screen share. Let's see. Nope, not this one. Although that's a good one too. This one. Can people see this? 8 steps of storytelling therapy? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go through the steps, and you see the 3 blue lines are that's the work of Carl Jung. My work is really a follow-up and a elaboration of Jung's work. So he had three steps as his basic therapeutic method, which are expanded further in this storytelling therapy. The first step in any therapy that I know of is you ask your client, please tell me the story of your life. Of course, many people come to counseling with a very immediate challenging difficulty, and they want to figure out how they can handle this difficulty. So, we have to help them on that immediate, to make an action plan regarding their immediate difficulty. But then also, we want to hear the whole story, the background, the context of the whole thing. So, so first, please tell me the story of your life. And I think that's a great line. That's a great way to, that's a great thing to say to somebody. Please tell me the story of your life. Take 10 minutes, take 45 minutes, take 2 sessions. Just tell me the story of your life from your point of view. Okay, next, listeners may share resonations. Of course, a therapist may do some self-disclosure and say, yeah, something like that has happened to me also. Some therapists do that, some don't. That's just a matter of taste and style. But when I wrote that, I was especially thinking about when group therapy situations. That if it's a group process, other people in the group may express resonations just to give support. Okay, then we start processing the life story. And the one way to do that is to identify themes in the life story. I usually recommend 4, but sometimes it comes 3, sometimes it comes 5. A theme is just an issue. It could be a social issue, like domestic abuse. If someone is being beaten by their spouse or such, that can be a theme. Or that can be a social issue. It's something that's happening again and again and again, or that's happening throughout one's life. It's a major part of one's life story. And some of these themes can be negative and painful. Some of them can be joyful. Many people have a theme of I love communication. I love art. I love something or other. So you might give it thought. I hope everyone has a pen or a pencil and paper, or you can even type into your computer, and give a thought for a moment of what are some major themes in your life story. I think many of you are therapists or in training to be therapists. So you might give a thought of, why and how you love providing therapy for people. Jung also encouraged people to think about archetypes in their life story. Archetypes are, type means type, and arch means extremely, like my arch enemy or such. So archetype means very typical. So archetypal figures will be a mentor, some authority figure who has been very cruel to you, positive or negative. There's an unlimited number of archetypes. These are figures in our lives that all humans experience. It's universal. So sometimes people say a boy, a man, say in his 20s and 30s, and then an old man. A girl, a woman in her 20s and 30s, and an old woman. See, 3 stages of life. Those are 3 archetypal stages of life. So this is part of the looking at themes, looking at archetypes, looking at important events and important people in your life story. And Jung called this explication. Okay, number 4. For each theme, think about, scan your memory. Have you ever seen a movie that related to any of these themes? Have you ever heard a grandmother story that related to any of these themes? Did you hear from a friend that she did something that relates to one of these themes? It can be a story on any level, from anywhere. It can be a historical figure, but it can also be just something you saw on the internet, which is the proverbial, just something happened. But here you're being asked to find stories that echo or are related to each of the 4 themes. And I like to ask a client to come up with 3 stories about each theme, relating to each theme, because these stories help remind you that you're not the only one who's experienced this situation, and it gives ideas about how to handle the situation. So for each echo story, I invite the client to write about how her experience is similar to the character there, and how her experience is different. Jung called this amplification, because he especially encouraged his clients to, his patients, to compare themselves with gods and goddesses from different mythologies. So if you're comparing yourself with Zeus, you're amplifying yourself. in terms of it gets bigger. But I don't feel that's necessary. I just say any story, any character who is related to a theme. Okay, and then 5, just play with the material. If you'd like to change the ending of any of the above mentioned stories, imagine a different ending. And this includes events in the story of your life. Change the ending, add a character. You know, I think we've all wished, I wished that wouldn't have happened, or I wished I would have handled that differently. Try it in your imagination. Then now 6, role playing. Speak to and as characters in all these stories. That is where emotions really come out. Here, let me come off screen share for a second. Stop share. Yes. You know, the hope of therapy is that it will help people get over things in the sense of really understand it, really feel it, work through it, and then be able to put down the baggage, to use a metaphor. That doesn't mean sweep it under the rug, to use a metaphor. That means really understand what happened, feel it. You know, there's a saying that the second time we experience something can be a liberation from the first time. The second time can be a liberation, because with the second time we're going back looking at it. This time we're in control. We're older, we're stronger. We have our therapist with us, who's a mentor and a guide and an ally. Hopefully you're feeling warm towards your therapist, and you're looking at what happened. And so when it first happened, you know, it happened and one was not in control of it. It just happened. And if there were painful things, that might have crushed one to some extent, and might have, you know, caused some bitterness that one might still be behaving in relation to that bitterness. But the second experience can be a liberation from that, and a very strong and powerful way to experience things a second time is to role play. And because you know, you say to your father, who say for example, my father is not living anymore, but I can say to my father, I have some unfinished business with him. I can say something to him, and then the leader, the group leader, will say, okay, reverse roles. And then I will have to answer on behalf of my father. So I will really have to use my imagination and my empathy to get a sense of what I think was on my father's mind. And so in this process of talking back and forth with the characters in your mind, in your memory, a lot comes out, including a lot that one was not aware of in the first place. And a lot of crying happens with this kind of role playing. This kind of role playing was made into a modality of its own called psychodrama. I mean, role playing is used in many different therapeutic methods, including storytelling therapy, including Gestalt therapy, including transactional analysis, including neuro-linguistic programming. A lot of us use it, but the modality of therapy that is built around role playing altogether is psychodrama. So you know, we talk about catharsis and abreaction and really having an emotional experience, and then hopefully a sense of release and relief. If it's going to happen, it often happens in the role playing process. And you can do it one-on-one with a client. A client can do it by herself. But there it is. Any comments or questions so far? Or what has come into your mind as I've been talking?
Sir, I wanted to ask that is this telling therapy, that's is there any some certification minimum duration which could be offered online, just like how we're interacting now in the class, it could be offered online, distance mode. Is it possible?
Yes, I give training in storytelling therapy, usually in 8 one-hour sessions once a week.
Okay.
But you know, that is not a substitute for a master's degree in psychology.
I have already done masters in psychology, PG diploma in counseling.
Wonderful.
And
Well,
family
yes.
therapy.
So then,
I just wanted so that I can practice it.
yes. Well, you know, sometimes my certificate says the trainee has undergone, you know, 3 months of training in storytelling therapy. For someone like yourself, I think we could say that you have received training as a storytelling therapist. I think if you already have a master's degree, I think we can call you a storytelling therapist if you undergo 8 sessions with me. But the thing is that this training that I give, it is experiential. The trainee undergoes the therapeutic process in the process of learning it. That's how she learns it, or he learns it. So you know, once you apply it to yourself, then you can understand it and apply it to others. Okay, does that answer the question? I think now I'm charging 20,000 rupees for the 8 sessions, 8 one-hour sessions. But also this storytelling therapy training is a part of the 1-year diploma course in expressive arts therapy that I mentioned. And that is done only in Chennai in person. The 1-year course is in Chennai in person, but I do offer the storytelling therapy training by Zoom. I've been using Zoom and programs similar to Zoom for 25 years. I love video conferencing, and I was an odd duck in the field.
So, sir, exams will also be online. Exams will also be online.
For the storytelling therapy training, there's not an exam. What is required is that I have to get to the last steps. The client or the trainee creates a healing story for herself, tells it to me, and also writes it down and sends it. That's the requirement.
Right. Eric, if you don't mind, can I come in a bit?
Yes.
So questions regarding the courses that Eric has to offer can please be sent to him via email. I've put his email ID on the chat box.
Yes.
Will that be okay, Eric? Because I think
yes, of course.
Reflections are getting a little interrupted because this is the process of the session. So if you have questions about the course, please reach out to Eric. I have put his email ID on the chat. Right?
Yes, and
whatever the requirement.
I will
Thank
also,
you so much.
as soon as I get organized here, I will also put my email ID or my website and such there. Yes. Okay, let's get back to
Sujata. We have Sujata with the question
Sujata,
and Maria with the question.
Go ahead, Sujata. You got to turn on your mic.
So yes, I'm aware that this is still a little tail to the previous question. When is your next online storytelling offer?
This is storytelling therapy. It's not storytelling. I give training in storytelling.
Yes, yes.
Separately. That's a separate thing. This storytelling therapy, we just arrange it. It's a one-on-one process. We arrange it whenever the client and I can do it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Monisha?
Yeah, I just have a question, Eric. How is this different from narrative therapy? Storytelling therapy and narrative therapy?
Yes, narrative therapy is, I would call narrative therapy one type of storytelling therapy. Narrative therapy does not include consideration so much of the interpersonal process of telling and listening, which is a part of storytelling therapy, or the type of storytelling therapy that I work with. The social interaction, the interpersonal aspect is an important part of it. Narrative therapy doesn't talk about that so much. Narrative therapy was developed in Australia and is still based in Australia. As it was formulated, narrative therapy really focuses on the life story and personal experiences and you know, if one feels one was a victim, there's an effort to help the client recover from that and really become a survivor and a thriver, and maybe someone who will help other people who've recovered from that a type of trauma. So it's very it doesn't involve much, at least the original formulation doesn't involve much work with fantasy or fairy tales or such, which is different from what I'm discussing, because I've mentioned the client, the trainee is invited to bring to mind favorite stories, and also part of the process that you're invited to invite a character from one of your favorite fairy tales or epics. Invite that character for coffee. You know what the motto of Cafe Coffee Day is, right? A lot can happen over a cup of coffee. You can have a really good conversation with Cinderella or Sita or anyone else who you would like, where you can just kind of compare notes about life with that character. That helps activate the imagination and helps get you in the mood to create your own story. Let's take one more, and then I'm going to go back to these 8 steps. Kiruthika?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So as you were talking about the steps that are involved in the storytelling, regarding the step 2, you mentioned about therapists self-disclosing their own story. So what do you think, sir? Is it appropriate for a therapist to always self-disclose their own stories, or is it good thing to do?
That's a question for a different session. That's a general counseling question. And again, it's a matter of taste and style. So
so Rick, I'll just like to.
No, I really don't. I don't want to go into that now, because it's a very big, elaborate discussion, and it's really not for us. But did somebody want to say a quick word about it?
No, I just wanted to ask. I mean, I had 2 questions. One is like based on what Kritika was asking. The same, very similar question. Like on the first step, story of your life. Do they have to say a fantasy story or
No. The story of your life is I was born in such and such a place on a certain time, and ... and then the end of the story is, and here I am today.
Okay.
And
So coming on to
there can be a little addendum of what you hope to do in the rest of your life. But 98% of the story of your life is beginning, I was born in such a place and time, and here I am now. You have to fill in that blank.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. So, and how to shift from there to step 3, like process the life story, and how to put it under the themes. So who will be putting it under the themes? Can you just elaborate on the themes?
Yes, well, you know, not just how do I say, this form of therapy also involves teaching the client about this form of therapy. You explain it to the client. So it's a learning experience for the client. Even if the client is not coming to be trained in storytelling therapy, it's built into the process. So you explain to the client, and then the next step is for you to you discover or find, imagine 4 themes in your life. What have been 4 outstanding things? Some people will say, well, I've been a people pleaser. I'm always trying to make people happy. And there's a good side to that, but there's also a bad side to that, because then people don't sometimes care for themselves as much as they should. And people will say, as I say, I love communication. I feel afraid of people because of something that happened to me. So these are the different themes which the client comes up with the help of the facilitator. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
let's go back to the screen share. Share screen. Whoops. Here we go. Okay, so speak to and as the characters, that's the role playing. And I just mentioned one form of role playing where you can ask Cinderella, gee, I've heard so much about you. I've heard your story so many times. I've really thought a lot about you. Could we sit and have coffee for a few minutes? And, you know, tell me about, I have some questions for you. You might have some questions for me. Let's talk. That's one type of role playing. We'll do active imagination, which is a specific creativity exercise, which also involves role playing. We'll do that in a couple of minutes. Then metaphors. All of this work is all about using metaphors. A metaphor is something that stands for something else. A symbol is something that stands for an idea, but really they're similar. It's metaphors and symbols. This work involves a lot of projection, a lot of projective techniques where you'll invite the client to create a character who has experienced some of the things that you've experienced, and then imagine adventures and struggles of that character. But it's really about you, or it's really about the client, but the client projects herself onto that figure. And the value of it is that sometimes it's helpful that people have a little distance from the material. You know, where if they're just talking about me, I might be self-conscious, I might be defensive, I might be embarrassed. But if I'm talking about a character, it might be give a little more freedom. So metaphors. Here, I have some notes about metaphors. Let me bring up metaphors. This is small print, but I'll read it out loud. So even if you can't read it properly, you can get it. Metaphors lift us into our imagination, often extending and refreshing the way we see the world. They speak directly to the imagination, bypassing the rational brain and helping to build connections through images and feelings. If a metaphor is traditional and conventional, using it could help one to feel related to and supported by one's culture and society. If a metaphor involves nature, using it could help one feel related to nature. Moreover, a metaphor, especially if it's conventional, can take an experience that is intensely personal and related to the outside world. So, you know, we don't even think about it, but our language, whether it's English or Hindi or any other language, is full of metaphors, animal metaphors. We all know what these things mean, right? Stop horsing around. Don't be so crabby. I will not be cowed. Cowed is very interesting. To be cowed is to, you know, flinch as if one is about to be hit. In English, that is assigned to the female of the species, whereas the male of the species is a bull, is a bully. So it's saying the male is a bully and the female is going to be cowed, at least among cattle. But it implies that that's the way it's going to be with humans too. So that's a terrible thing. I always say we should change the words or something, because our language controls our understanding of reality. If we think that it's destiny that the male of the species is going to be a bully, and that the female is going to be afraid to be hit, we're stuck. So that's not so great. But okay, he's chicken. We all know what chicken means, right? Or at least in the USA, chicken means afraid. Or he's running around like a chicken without a head. You know, sometimes when people butchering chickens, they cut off the head, but the body is still moving around for minutes. So if somebody is really discombobulated, not connected to their emotions, their body, but they're all over the place, sometimes people say he's running around like a chicken without a head. Color metaphors. Blue. Blue often means sad, right? But blue is also considered by many people a very peaceful and meditative color. The Virgin Mary in all European religious painting, she's always wearing a light blue robe. That is her color. Green. Green is also multifaceted. Green with envy, and sometimes when people are nauseous, they say, "Oh, they look green. They're gonna vomit." But now there's a lot of talk about green, sustainable energy, and green activities. So green has come up. Green has become more popular and more approved in the color symbolism world. But here's just so many of them. Metaphors make it very vivid and often visual, and often tell a story. So it's much more impactful than just saying, "Oh, I don't know." It's more powerful if you say, "I'm in the dark. I don't see it. I'm lost. I'm in the woods. I'm at sea." You see, these are more visceral and visual descriptions of feelings. So, so part of this work involves finding or recognizing the metaphors that one thinks of. Often people say, "I'm trapped. I'm stuck. I'm like a bird in a golden cage." So then you can work with that story. How can the bird get out of the cage? Sometimes the bird doesn't want to get out of the cage, right? Because the bird is being fed. It could be dangerous for the bird to go out of the cage. So this is just thoughts about metaphors. Let me make that go down. And then finally, compose a healing, growing, maturing, transforming story, which, a story it can be a model of the past and a model for the future. So when you find or create a story, that story, and you take it to heart, that story will do its work on you. And an opening question I often ask people is, given that the right story will do its work on you, what work needs to be done on you? Either for the sake of healing or just for the sake of growing. A seed, to use a metaphor, a seed usually does not need healing. A seed just needs proper conditions under which to grow, right? Sunlight, but not too much sunlight. Water, but not too much water. This work can, of course, in the business world, people don't want to think about trauma and healing. They want to think about fulfilling their potential. And growing and developing. So you can do this work either way, either healing or growing. So compose a healing or growing story that sets a sort of points a character in the direction that you feel you want to go in. So why don't you take a moment? I already invited you to think about some themes in your life. Why don't you take a moment to think about, given the statement, the right story will do its work on you, what work needs to be done on you for you to get to the next stage in your development, either for the sake of growing, maturing, or if you feel you want to overcome some kind of trauma. Take a minute and just think and write. What work needs to be done on you? You're not going to share this with me or anybody else. This is private. So just write. Just ignore the screen. I'm looking around for different notes. Ignore the screen and just please go inside yourself. What work needs to be done on you? Smita, we began at 4. Are we going until 5:30?
Yes, it's a 90-minute session. In fact, we begin at almost close to 4:10.
Okay, so
I leave it to you, Eric.
do you need time at the end, or I take it to the end?
No, I just need probably 2 minutes. Just
Okay, so
yeah,
so I should go until about 5:35?
that's fine.
Okay, great. Okay, so the question is, what work needs to be done on you? And what I'm saying is that once you formulate this together with the themes in your life, this will give you material for the healing or developing, transforming story that you're going to create for yourself if you are undergoing storytelling therapy. Because you'll create fictional characters. Maybe there might be animals. It might be a prince and a princess. Doesn't matter. Those are all external external masks and costumes. The internal question is in what way does the character need to grow or heal? Okay, if you take a look at the screen, these are just some of the 6 important quotes or ideas in this process. I will, in addition to asking, please tell me the story of your life, I'll often ask a client, well, what is going well in your life now, personally and professionally? What is going well? What do you want to build on? What do you want to continue? And in what areas, personally and professionally, are you looking forward to change, both regarding changing yourself and changing the situation you're in? So this process involves, to use metaphor, taking stock, taking inventory of yourself. This requires introspection. And as you know, introspection is not some people's cup of tea. Even many people who come for counseling, they don't really want any introspection. They want to figure out what to do about the boss who's giving them a hard time. But you might want to persuade them that it will also help them it will help them manage their boss if they also understand themselves better. So we have an expression in the USA especially, sometimes it's good to pop the hood, open the hood of the car and check out the engine. If an engine is running smoothly, metaphorically speaking, one will not be feeling much depression. One will not be feeling much anxiety. One will not be doing a lot of procrastinating. One will be, working like a well-oiled machine. One will be feeling productive, as if you're living happily ever after, or you're on the road to living happily ever after. But if you don't feel you're on the road to living happily ever after, and if the engine is not running smoothly, you got to find out why and troubleshoot, which means, look at the different parts of it and see where's the blockage. Where's the metaphor is a chain is as strong as its weakest link. Your life is as happy as if there's only one thing in your life which is really terrible, it can ruin your whole life. So what's going on? An engine runs on petrol or diesel, and you buy that. But you, as an engine, your energy, your petrol is your life source. Your creative energy, your life energy, that's coming from within. And if that's not coming, you got to find why. Why? Where's the bottleneck? What's causing the blockage, to use a metaphor? Okay, I already mentioned the second experience can be a liberation from the first experience. Okay, and I love this quote. Working with folktales, epics, and other traditional stories could help one to recognize the power of archetypal elements outside and inside oneself, and then put one's personal experiences into a larger perspective. Understanding the functioning of archetypal characters and situations within oneself is a way of synchronizing the beating of one's own heart with the rhythm of the cosmos. Man, that's poetry. It's academic writing, but it's poetry. We want to synchronize the beating of our hearts with the rhythm of the cosmos, so we don't feel alienated. We don't feel, alone. We're part of the whole life process. And I also like this one. People who know a lot of, especially grandmother stories, which includes, epics as well as fairy tales and Panchatantra stories. People who know a lot of these kind of traditional stories have a richly furnished chamber of the psyche, because we can compare our own experience to the experience in all these different stories. And this gives us a richly furnished chamber of the psyche. I worry for young people today, who don't study literature, don't study mythology, except maybe for the religion that their family's in. They don't have a lot of things that they can compare their experience to. This whole field is not, the question is not about whether or not you believe in God or a particular God. It's about using figures, including divine figures, as psychological models. Okay, so let's see. I want to invite you to do 2 creativity exercises. Stop share. One is called active imagination, and one is called question-based storytelling. And these are both the things that you can do to help the client access her unconscious on the way towards creating a healing or developing story for herself. Active imagination was developed by Carl Jung over 100 years ago. And the first, as far as I know, the first use of role-playing in psychology, because he's one of the founders of the modern field of psychology. So what it is, imagine that you're walking in a forest, and you're walking on a path, and it's a very pleasant walk, because the canopy of the leaves and the branches up above are blocking the sun, so it's not too hot. And on either side of the path, there's different plants, different leaves. Some of them are big, some of them are small, and they have different textures. Some leaves are sort of rough, some leaves are shiny and smooth, and they have different smells, all good smells. But the smells of the forest, the smells of different greenery. So you're walking along, having a sensory experience of the forest, and you come to a clearing. And it turns out the clearing, it's actually the beach. You've come to the beach, and you look out ahead, and you know how vast the ocean is. Straight ahead of you and on both sides. And in your mind's eye, just make a note to yourself, what's the color of the ocean that day? Is it really a deep, rich blue, or does it also have a greenish color to it? Just decide for yourself. So you're activating your visual sense. And you walk towards the water's edge. There's a little rowboat there with oars. And you step into the boat and shove off and row a small distance out. The sea is very calm this day, so it's fine to row a little bit out, and you look down over the side of the boat, down, down, down. And you see the ocean is representing your imagination and your unconscious. So you say to your unconscious, please send something up from the depths that I can learn from. Maybe I can use it in my healing story, my developing story. Please send something up. Sometimes people in some religious traditions will call on a god or a goddess to give them a dream or give them inspiration. But in psychology, we ask the unconscious. You can combine the two, actually. You can have the goddess of the unconscious or the god. Just take a moment. You might want to close your eyes. See what comes up from the depths. You're looking for an object, but when an object comes up that is of interest to you, imagine, give life to it. Imagine that it has a face, a mouth, eyes, and can speak. And thank the object for coming, and have a little conversation with the object. You can ask the object a question. It might ask you a question. Do a little role play with the object. Just a conversation, just like you had a conversation with Cinderella. This time, have a similar character. This time, have a conversation with an object that you are creating into a character. So yeah, give it a try. Of course, we're doing this too fast, but take a few moments and see if anything comes up from the depths. Of course, journaling is a part of this process. This kind of training or this type of therapy does not just happen during the 1 hour session, the meeting session. It happens throughout the entire 8 weeks. So the client or trainee has a journal where she writes down her dreams and her thoughts about any of this, including what object might come up and the conversation they have. And all of her associations with the object, relating to the object. Would anyone be willing to share about what object came up, if any? If you like, type it into the chat section. We'll take a look at it later. Some people do this active imagination process every day. Many professional writers, like writers of movies and all, and writers of novels, they begin their day by doing this, just to see what comes up. A pot, a ladle, a boat. A ladle is interesting because a ladle is used to spoon food, right? So then the question is, who's cooking? What are they cooking? Who are they cooking for? It leads to a whole story. The shell. Okay, let's jump to another creativity exercise, which is story-based, question-based story making. And this process, imagine an outdoor scene. And the first thing is imagine the weather. It's a daytime scene, but is it very hot or not so hot? Is it very sunny? Is it cloudy? Is the air still? Is it windy? Is it cloudy? So it's an outdoor scene. And then imagine, where is it actually? Is it in the countryside? Is it in the city? Is it in a park in a city? You know, where, you know, to use a metaphor of a movie, where are you stepping into this movie? This may not be the beginning of the movie, but this is a scene in the movie. So how's the weather? And where are we? Could be a city street. It's an outdoor scene. Could be a city street. Could be the beach. Could be on a ship. Could be anywhere. Okay. Now that you have the weather and the location, imagine who might step into this scene. What character? A human, an animal, a divine figure, you know, somebody from outer space, a totally imaginary figure. Who might be there? It can, if you like, it can be somebody like you, but it should not be you exactly. There should be at least one or two ways in which this character is definitely not you, in the way the character looks or moves. You want to imagine, how does the character move? What's the style of movement of this character? And, you know, what is the character wearing? Is the character all alone, or are there a group of characters? And now kind of zoom in on the character and feel, how does the character feel? How does she, I'll use the female pronoun. How does she feel? And as you're thinking about this, you might look at her mouth, because the mouth is along with the eyes, the most expressive part of our face. If you can imagine and visualize her mouth, and this is often done, you know, we encourage people to draw this, to draw a stick figure and draw the character's mouth. That will tell you how the character feels. It doesn't even have to be a conscious decision. Just let your hand do the talking. See what comes out. And then if you have a clear sense of how she feels, you got your story. Because the next question is going to be, well, why does she feel that way? You know, what happened 10 minutes ago? What does she hope will happen 10 minutes from now? What is she hoping for? What does she want? What is she looking for? You know, does she have a plan? Does she want to go and buy something from a shop? Does she want to go to college? Does she want to be prime minister? How does she feel? What is she looking for? What does she want? What does she want to make? What does she want to be? What does she want to do? And there's your story, because she'll have to make a plan. There'll be obstacles. She'll have resources to overcome the obstacles. You know, there'll be twists and turns. Okay, so that is question-based storytelling. It is derived actually from something called six-part story making, which many of you might be familiar with, which is actually used as a psychological assessment tool to assess the client's problem-solving abilities. Because with six-part story making, it's the emphasis is on how the imaginary figure is going to overcome obstacles. The client creates the obstacles and imagines how the obstacles can be overcome. But I have spoken with Alida Gersi. I've interviewed her, and you can see the recording. I'll send you the link. We had an hour conversation last year online, and we both agreed that the six-part story making was too limited. So I add, in the sixth part, the first question is, imagine a character and what the character wants. I think that's abrupt. It's too abrupt. So I start with the weather, the landscape, and how does the character feel? That's the way I work into it. And you can have all sorts of other questions. You know, where does the character live? Who does the character live with? So this is one way to make a story. Just let your unconscious choose. Another way to make a story is to take the themes in your life and the question, what work needs to be done on me? And imagine the work that needs to be done, and imagine a character who undergoes that work, and make a story out of that.
Eric, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
So does the client's imagination should be restricted to our questions? For example, forget about the adults. Let's take the example of children, and we know how kind of a vivid imagination we have. So the base should we, I mean, should they restrict themselves based on our questions? Like, no, for example, as you said, what is the weather, and how was where was the location, and who was the character or the figure? Can they just jump? Is it okay to jump to the next imaginations? Because I did when you were telling me that. So that's where this question popped up.
Let the client make up her own questions, of course. Her own questions and her own answers.
Okay.
There's no need to be overly formal with all this, at least in storytelling therapy. There are other modalities where it's more formal, but yeah, this whole thing is just to get a process going, to let the mind wander, let the imagination wander, with the hope, with the idea that issues are going to come up that the client is going to work with to resolve any inner conflicts or unfinished business.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I heard a man's voice. Did I hear a man? I heard somebody's voice. Did somebody else want to say something? No? Okay. Let's see. I'm going to put up on the screen here the activities that some of which we did in this session, and some of which we could have done, and which are done in the more full storytelling therapy training and therapy process. Okay, so activities. What work needs to be done on one, either for healing or development? Life story, of course, that's a long process. Usually in one-on-one therapy, you take at least one whole session to listen to the client's life story, and then identify the themes, identify echo stories that echo on the themes. The active imagination we did. Invite a character for coffee, we did. And we did this. We did question-based, and I mentioned one way is to think, okay, what work needs to be done on me? What are the themes in my life? What developments, what resolutions am I looking forward to? And now I'm going to create a symbolic metaphorical story that that helps a character go through the process and go in the direction that I need to go in. But by working with that character who is a metaphor for you, it might do some magic on you. It might work with your unconscious to help you move in that direction. Okay. Let's go back. Let's see. Oh, these were the important quotes. And let's see. Oh, about a suffering child. There's here, I'll make this bigger. One of the archetypes and one of the internal characters that people often work with are a joyful child, a suffering child, a mentor figure, someone who says, I know you can do it. If you've had somebody like that in real life in your life, fantastic. That character can represent, a positive, nurturing voice. But if you have never had a person say that, imagine that person. That's like your fairy godmother, who may not be able to do magical transformations, but does magic for your soul by looking in your eyes and say, you're a talented person, you're a beautiful person, you're a strong person. I know that you can do it, whatever you want to do. People who get that kind of support on a regular basis as a young person have a much happier time in life and much more successful. If you're confronted all the time as a child with you're nothing and you're not worthwhile, you got to do a lot of work to recover from that. And so this field has come up called reparenting, where you do a role play with a younger version of yourself and say, oh, yes, you're my suffering child. Yeah, mom and dad were not, they were not perfect. They had their issues, but here I am, I'm an adult now, and I love you. And I want to, in effect, I want to adopt you. I want to adopt this younger version of myself and reparent you and give you the love and nurturing and support that you didn't have, that I didn't have when I was young. So, so then you can develop this relationship, ongoing relationship with a lot of journaling and a lot of dialogue, and find out what that suffering child feels and thinks and wants, and give it. There was something else I was trying to remember, but I'm not remembering. All right, let's have final comments, questions if you must, but best of all, what has been going on in your mind as you've been listening to this? Please share.
Hi, Eric. This is Renu Mira here. After a very long time meeting you.
Mm-hmm.
You're my guru. So, I've been in Eric's session for more than 7 to 8 years. Really wonderful being his student. So, whoever is willing to do this storytelling therapy, it really works out. It's not about how we give therapy to others. First of all, the therapy is for ourselves. So we can come up in life in so many ways. Mental peace, good relationship. So there are so many things you can improve on yourself. So the very best course what Eric is offering for so long. So thank you so much, and feel so blessed, Eric, to be here in this session. Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I know you work especially with parents of children who have special challenges.
Yes.
And I know you give them a lot of support.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you're continuing that work.
Yes, Eric.
I do want to mention that the 12th annual edition of the Expressive Arts Therapy training that we do with Women's Christian College begins in December. For that, you'd have to come to Chennai for 10 days, 5 times a year. But also my wife, Magdalene Jayaratnam, she is giving training in Mumbai in December in Psychodrama.
Okay.
And so if you're interested in psychodrama, which is a key aspect of storytelling therapy and just a wonderful form of not just therapy, can also be done, just to help people work together and play together. Psychodrama, getting into the groove of setting up role playing and inviting people to play roles, it takes some practice. You got to get used to it. It takes some guts to jump from the analytical talk to playful acting talk. Children can do it easily, but us grown-ups sometimes are a little shy about it. So if you want some experience of psychodrama in Mumbai in December, please let me know. And Oh, and somebody mentioned the Chennai Storytelling Festival. This year, it's going to be almost all by Zoom. Wait, I gotta put somebody on mute. Okay. It's going to be almost all by Zoom, and there are 65 90-minute workshops. Like, okay, this was a 90-minute workshop. 65 of these on the 4 weekends of February, all by Zoom, all free. I have talked 65 people like me and like Renu Mira and Smita Rajan. I think Smita, you're doing a session. Yes, 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 all free. So this is my I think this is going to be carved on my gravestone that I facilitated this this edition of the Chennai Storytelling Festival. So if you're interested in learning about these things, send me an email. I've put my email ID in the chat section, and you can find me. I'm easy to find. Just Google Eric Miller Storytelling Institute. I'm there.
I have a question, Dr. Eric.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that in any of your experiences in all this storytelling and this kind of therapy, have any of your clients gone into bipolar depressions or split personalities? Because when you are saying storytelling, you are allowing them to go into another personality so that they can. It's something like Gestalt.
Yes, yes. Well, when you invite people to do role playing, you have to make sure they're taking it on a play level, on a poetic level, and that they are not carried away, with the reality of the voices. They have to remember that all these voices are just, created by their own mind, and they should not feel overwhelmed by these voices. If they do tend to feel overwhelmed, then you stop immediately. And, medication may be called for, but yes, you have to be very careful to monitor what's going on with your people to make sure that they are not getting carried away.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. We'll keep it. Thank you.
Eric, there are a few questions on the chat box. I'm just going to pick one because this was way before. So if you don't mind, this is much before the sharing of the active imagination. The question was, the therapy seems to call for some creativity. What if the client rates themselves low in creative arts and expression? Maybe if I can extend the question to include expressive therapy, where do you start from if the client has issues with self-expression or even artistic skills?
Well, this is all designed so you don't have to be an artist. You just have to remember your life story. That's not too hard, right? It's kind of hard to forget your life story. You can't lose it on the bus. So then your life story, and then identify what's important in your life story, and then identify some stories that you've loved, and then close your eyes and see what comes up, and imagine a scene, and imagine, does anyone appear in that scene? So it's designed to just harvest ideas that are coming up. Harvest as a metaphor, just like, if corn or stalks of corn or wheat are growing, you cut the stalk and you process the grain. So likewise, this is all just to let your mind go and ask simple questions. These are not creative questions. Imagine some weather, imagine a scene, imagine if somebody is there. That's not creative. That's just I guess it is a little creative, but it's not it's designed to let your unconscious do the work for you. So
Eric, can I just bring in something here?
Yes, go ahead.
Just to add to what you're saying. I think what the storytelling therapy follows is bringing in a bit of awareness of yourself, and it doesn't need creativity. I think what we need to is delve into the stuff which is not available easily. The weather, the texture of the water, for instance. I had a green cloth and this green cloth was damp, right? So when I did the active imagination, so I think it's got more to do with putting in your effort of awareness and, getting subtle with what is not being shown easily. So it's not creativity, it probably is awareness. I hope it answered the question.
Yeah, awareness of your own mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to read out 2 more questions, post which there are questions in the chat box. The question is expressive arts therapy used only to know the unconscious mind?
No, it brings up material from the unconscious, and then there's discussion to integrate it with your conscious mind.
There's a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pattern to that.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is, how is this really storytelling? Because there is no story to hear.
Well, you think about it's your life story is there, the echo stories are there, the healing or developmental story that you create is there, but this is not about storytelling for an audience. This is not storytelling on a stage. This is not about the stagecraft of storytelling. I teach that separately. This is a form of depth psychoanalysis, which uses story to help the client, understand and work with herself. Does that answer?
I guess
it begins to answer.
Yeah, at least. We have another question. It's from Bhumika. She says, could you tell me what are the 4 types of themes in one's life story and how to find one?
Well, everyone has different themes. One theme of my life was I moved from one side of the world to the other, from New York to India, to Chennai. And I always think, if the world is a globe, which we agree it's a globe, right? And we here in India are, sitting and standing upward, doesn't that mean people on the other side, in the USA, on the other side of the world, aren't they upside down? They should be upside down. So I've never really figured, I don't know, I like to think about that. It's just a kind of a joke, but anyway, one theme of my life is that I moved from one end of the world, one side of the world to the other. One side is that I love art, and to me, art is related to people being together. One theme in my life might be some personality issues I have with sometimes being impatient. Oh, yes, one very important part of this work is that I call upon the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, who thinks of trauma in a particular way. Many of you are working with trauma in terms of emotional violence or physical violence or sexual exploitation. He thinks of trauma in terms of, if we did not have good, easy, relaxed conversation, communication with our parents or whoever was taking care of us when we were young, that caused a trauma in us. That sent us into shock, that we felt, oh, I'm not worthy of being communicated with. I must be nothing. I must be, that will create poor self-esteem. So the trauma that he wants to help people recover from is the trauma of lack of communication. And, he'll tell you how our brain does not develop properly. The physical aspect of the brain does not develop if that communication did not happen. The good news is that we can go in and reactivate and develop at any time. But when I work with clients and talking about what work needs to be done and are you happy with yourself, I find this approach very useful. Many people, did not have rich, relaxed communication with the people who brought them into this, who raised them. And so they need to recover from that. Smita, I think we've gone over time. And perhaps
Right.
we should end the recording, and then, do you want your words to be recorded, or should we? No,
We
so
can
shall
please
we,
stop.
shall
Yes,
we end shall we end the recording now?
Yes, please. Also, people, I think few of the participants have left, but people who are here, please send in your name with the feedback form link, which is there in the chat box. There are e-certificates available of attendance. So please, unless and until you type out your proper name and initials right, you will not be receiving it from us.
Okay, now wait, now I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you again, Smita. We planned this for a long time. I'm so happy that we finally did it. So thank you very much. And thanks to Thunai.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Eric. Thanks a
Mhm.
lot.